All content provided on this podcast is for informational, entertainment, or educational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice of any kind, including but not limited to legal, medical, financial, exercise, or health related. Listeners are encouraged to consult with a qualified professional before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast. Any reliance you place on such information is strictly at your own risk. By listening to this podcast, you agree that the hosts, guests, producers, and all affiliated parties are not liable for any damages, losses, or injuries resulting from the use or misuse of the information provided. This podcast may occasionally feature discussions on sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised.
Well, John, you and I have been in the fitness game for a long time. We've seen a lot of stuff come and go, and we usually are pretty good knowing what all the trends are. And the biggest trend that's going on in fitness these days, today, we're talking peptides.
Welcome to Faith, Freedom, and Fitness. Introducing your host, John Turk, a former police officer, fitness cover model, and the real-life inspiration behind Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. He is joined by Michael Wayne Foster, a former school teacher, actor, and model who's graced the covers of over 800 romance novels. Get ready for the F3 podcast.
The first time I ever heard of peptides is back when I had my supplement store in West Hollywood. And there was this kid that came in all the time, and he was always talking about all these different peptides. And we're going to get into some stuff today. They've always got these crazy names and crazy numbers, and I don't know half the numbers that go along with them, but he would always talk about this. And this was probably 2009. And then I remember he came in one day and he had scars and scrapes all over his face. And I guess he went crazy and was like taking his head and smacking it into the concrete and all this stuff. And my business partner's like, yeah, he takes peptides. And I was like, oh, I'm never going to take peptides. I didn't have a clue. Now, come to find out, the kid was schizophrenic and he had all sorts of mental issues. Yeah. But all I know is that kid was taking peptides, and that was the first time I'd heard of them. Do you know anything as far as like the history of peptides? You know, how long they've been around, where they came from?
Yeah, I think when you look at peptides, they started back basically in the 1920s, right? You started with insulin was the first one, because so many people were having trouble regulating that, and they were, diabetes and things like that. So they were basically discovered back in the 20s, and you had growth hormone back then as well. And it was used to treat diabetes. And before that, after basically what it was is they're short chains of amino acids, and they act on certain receptor sites in the body. And a peptide is evolved over the years. Like in the 1950s, they started sequencing them, and they had come up with synthetic ones, which was like oxytocin and vasopressin, which were used for inducing labor, and also regulating blood pressure. And then in the 70s, we saw this giant explosion in research, and that's when they found more peptides, and especially more of the growth hormone releasing ones. They found ones for the immune system, like the thymosins and things like that, and then the melatonins for skin. And by the 1990s, you had the GLPs all came along. So that's kind of how the history of them evolved. And today there's over 80 peptides that are approved for usage and all over the world. So the United States has approved several, and all over the world they're approving more. But what people need to realize is that most of the peptides now, it's really, I can't stress this more, for people to really understand where they're getting their peptides from if they're going to get it. So, for example, I've had clients who you and I were discussing earlier came up to me and started asking me questions, and I knew right away that they were on peptides. And I knew simply because of how much weight they had lost, but also their symptoms. She would cancel in the morning saying her stomach, she's upset, she's really nauseous, which is a big sign of the semaglutide, right? So what people need to realize is was getting it from a doctor, which is cool. We got pharmacies for that, for certain peptides that are FDA approved. Now, a lot of people are taking what's called the Wolverine stack, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which is the BPC 157, the TB 500, and the GHK-Cu, which we'll get into those later when we talk about the fitness peptides. But I asked her, and I said, well, what doctor's giving it to you? And she says, oh, I just bought it online, and I'm like, oh, how do you know what you're taking? And she says, well, I asked a friend and this friend said this friend knew. And I just looked at her and I said, you can't do that. You don't understand what you're messing with here. This is not like a supplement, right? It's something that has a very, very powerful effect on the human body. You could really mess it up. Like, could you imagine injecting an unknown amount of growth hormone in you on a regular basis? People need to realize some of these side effects are irreversible. For example, growth hormone, peptide, right? If you take too much growth hormone, it can make your long bones grow. And when you're an adult making your long bones grow, where's it going to grow it? It's going to grow at the end of it. It's not going to do anything. Then you're going to get these really arthritic, messed up knuckles and joints. It's going to make your forehead grow. That doesn't change.
Barry Bonds, do you remember his hat size changed as a 40-year-old man playing baseball? His actual hat size grew.
Yeah. The forehead.
Yeah.
I mean, so you look at all the guys with the bubble gut now. They're combining growth hormone and insulin. And what is growth hormone and insulin? They're peptides. So people don't understand how potent these things are. So number one, you can't just buy it at some lab online. And people say, oh, well, it's been third-party tested. That doesn't mean anything. What they're doing is called a chromate test. And a chromate is a lab that performs the test. And all that does is it confirms where the substance has in it, right? It confirms like the quality or the purity of the substance that it has. And does it actually have in a measured amount, what it says it has? That's all it does. What it doesn't test is whether the product is sterile, whether it has bacterial toxins in them. You could have an endotoxin in there like botulism. So let's explain the immune system first and how it works. So for example, you could get a bacteria that is enclosed by our immune system. So for example, macrophages come in and they surround the bacteria and they don't allow it to go through your body. Well, guess what? If you get an injury and then your body heals, we all have that bacteria surrounded inside of our body and it doesn't get released. But what happens is, if you get sick or something wacky goes on and your body gets a split in that membrane, it could release that toxin. And then 20 years later from a knee surgery, you could have an infection, and it happens. Well, the same thing could happen with peptides. If you get a jar of peptides from a lab that's not like an FDA approved lab, like a 503A or a 503B lab, you could have different kinds of, impurities in there that could really mess you up. So I think whenever someone takes something like a peptide that's especially injected into your body, man, you really have to know where that's coming from. And is it purity tested? And you got to make sure that there's no biologically active substances in there that you're shooting into your body. And that's why it's really important to go through your due diligence and look at some of the safety efficacies on it, the sterility, and who made it, where is it coming from? I mean, all these things are really ultra important. And so, for example, I am looking into it right now to take it, and I'm seeing an actual doctor because I want to do the BPC 157, the TB 500, and also the GHKCU. And I talked extensively with him on Tuesday, and he uses a lab in Texas that is a 503A approved lab, which means the FDA regulates it, and they have to go through real stringent testing on impurities that may be contained within the product. So, for example, if you buy, let's just say, testosterone cypionate, right? It's legal. You get it from a pharmacy. It's FDA tested. And a lot of times you'll hear that it has a cleaner in it. Like, it became real popular when Trump was with COVID, and he said, hey, can't we just stick a cleaner in somebody's body? And everybody thought he was saying stick Lysol in your body. Well, what they put in a lot of these drugs, especially the injectables, is a cleaner. And one of them is, I forget the name of it, but what it does is it cleans it and disinfects anything that's in there. But the problem is some people could be allergic to it. So, for example, a lot of times when people would inject the cypionate from, like, say, I think it was Pfizer, they were getting a real irritation at the site, and it turned out to be from the cleaner that's in it. So all these other things that are in there on top of the cleaner, you could have reactions to. So now you add in a lab that is not FDA approved or regulated, you could get all kinds of goofy stuff being injected into your body and you don't even realize it. And it might not happen right away.
Well, going back to, like, you remember we talked about that documentary that Chris Bell did, that Bigger, Faster, Stronger.
Yeah.
At the very end of it, he talked about all the supplements that were not FDA approved, and he went over to Home Depot and got a bunch of Mexican dudes to do it in his, in his kitchen, and they're putting it together. The one guy's sneezing, they're putting creatine in pills, and it's just, remember that part? It's like it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Well, now that we got the scare tactics out of the way, were peptides, the sequence of amino acids, work to have your body elicit a response. So I guess the best way I could say it is, in every bit of research I've done, is it's kind of like with steroids, you're just going in there and taking the gas and putting the pedal to the metal, where with peptides, it's kind of like you're fine tuning your engine to get better efficiency. So like, we've mentioned growth hormone peptides. So what that sequence of amino acids would do is spur your pituitary gland to give, because, the way the pituitary works with growth hormone is it kind of goes out in spurts. It's not just a solid thing. So by taking the growth hormone peptide, your pituitary gland would start to spurt growth hormone like you're going through puberty again, for example. That's why they would give it to people with dwarfism, I believe they call it. And, for people that are trying to, regenerate cartilage and tendons and muscle tissue and all that, that's what that does. Rather than like the old school, do you remember like the stuff back when they'd be like Lyle Alzado was taking it, that growth hormone, they were taking it from like human cadavers, and they were actually using growth hormone. That's why all those guys, going back to your big foreheads, notice they all had gaps in their teeth. Even Arnold had to have his fixed.
Yeah.
I mean, this was like changing bone structure.
Lee Haney, Arnold,
all of them did. And then now and I've noticed, and I've used growth hormone before. I used it to repair my Achilles tendon. I don't know if I told you that story, but when it snapped, I go into the doctor. Yeah. And I told the doctor, I'm like, look, I want to heal this as fast as possible. Can you put me with an endocrinologist? And this was back in, like 2005. And he's like, I don't know anything about that. This is, we've come so far in the last 20 years where at least doctors like your doctor you're going to go see are much more open-minded. But my doctor was like, I can't do anything like that. And I was kind of a jerk about it. I was like, okay, well, just so you know, I'm going to go to the biggest dude in the gym and I'm going to go get some growth hormone, and I'll see you in 6 weeks, thumbs up, walked away. And I started using minimal dosages on growth hormone. And when I went back, he's looking at my Achilles and he's like, I've never seen a human body heal this fast. I'm like, well, what do I know? But the point of it is I knew that I wasn't getting the Lyle Alzado cadaver juice. It was a peptide. I mean, all growth hormone now, like you were saying, it's a peptide. And, using it in minimal doses, it helped me heal my body incredibly fast. So it's just, I just know that when you take peptides, again, please correct me if I'm off base on this, but all of my research has led me to believe that the amino acid sequence elicits a response from your body rather than taking a synthetic drug or hormone and putting it in to do the work. It's making your body do the work.
Yeah, basically what they do is they amplify signals. So in other words, they kind of turn things on or they turn them off. So you can have an agonist peptide or you can have an antagonist peptide. For example, like a growth hormone stimulator, or you can have a testosterone stimulator. Then you could have ones to turn off testosterone. Those will be an antagonist for people like cancer. Yes. Then you have people like women with ovulation that are trying to get pregnant. They don't want it to happen too fast. So they have ones that interfere with the ovulation hormone. And those, again, are called antagonist peptides. So they work in different ways. One can land on it and just take it up so you can't be turned on, or the other one can act like a key, the same key, and turn the peptide on. So
it's signal manipulation, basically, is what we're doing here.
Yeah, exactly. And so, the biggest one that really has made peptides, have a breakthrough is everything with, the weight loss with, that's the first thing they attacked. It doesn't surprise me that that's what got FDA approval first, because they knew it'd be huge, and it has been huge. You look at Ozempic and what it's done, but Ozempic isn't without its flaws, along with a lot of these peptides. We were talking about side effects, right? Well, you ever hear of Ozempic face? And you see these people, they get this bizarre looking face from it because they lose weight, and it's all mostly muscle, And
I got to tell you, John, a quick movie story. The last thing that I did was the Thunderman's Return, and I was on set, and Rosa Blasi, Mrs. Thunderman, we were talking, and I said, like, I was thinking about doing Ozempic at the time. I'm like, because I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight, and she's like, don't do it. You're going to get Ozempic face. And I've never heard that before. And I'm like, what the hell is Ozempic face? But you're right. And you start to see this. But I wanted to bring this up really quick before we move on to other stuff, because I know we're spending a lot of time on the fat loss drugs. Fat loss peptides. But a neighbor of mine was walking by today, and she'd lost a bunch of weight, and we were talking about it. And she was explaining to me that 20 years ago, she had the bariatric surgery,
Mhm.
So my father had the arthroscopic band that they put around there to sort of, you know what I'm talking about? The band surgery.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So he had that. So they did nothing of cutting into your stomach, but the bariatric surgery is a massive surgery where they go in and they're actually cutting away your stomach. And I got to thinking about this, John, and I really wanted to throw this at you and hear your professional opinion on this. But my instincts automatically tell me that we have so much nutrient absorption that takes place in the stomach. So let's look at, like you said, everything has its pros and its cons. Well, the thing with, when you're measuring the cons with, okay, you got Ozempic face. And like I said, this new Retatrutide, people are getting great results and they don't look like the Walking Dead like Ozempic does. And from what I've witnessed, but we were talking about her bariatric surgery. And if you have taken that area of your stomach and shrunk it because you've literally just cut it away, that is a lot of surface area that is no longer going to be absorbing nutrients. And she told me, funny you said that.
Peptides.
Or making your own natural peptides. And she said, funny you said that. She said, you should see now for the rest of my life how many vitamins that I have to take because I can no longer absorb that much. So then I started thinking that it's just like, because I've had another friend of mine that was like, do you think I should get the bariatric surgery? And I mean, he's like a guy with maybe 29-30% body fat, probably weighs 260 pounds or so. He's not by no means morbid obesity, but I'm just like, stay away from that bariatric surgery because down the road, when you get older, I mean, when you're in your 80s and every little nutrient counts, you're not going to have the stomach, surface area to absorb these nutrients that are so important for you to, sustaining not just life, but just well-being. So that would be, if someone is having a hard time losing weight, I would think that, if we're doing pros and the cons, that would be a pro for the peptides as far as something that's just helping to decrease your appetite rather than literally cutting away the majority of your stomach. You have any thoughts on that?
I'm not a big believer in that because not only cut away your stomach, but a lot of people that get the laparoscopic band on there and they cut off basically the amount of stomach that the food's able to go into is just insane to me. You're altering your physiology and it's not good, especially when there really wasn't a problem there. The problem is, your fork. So, I mean, there's so many things that can happen. Like I have a client that she's got that done. And if you eat too much, you'll automatically throw up. So she's eating these small portions. And yes, she's lost a lot of weight, but it's completely unhealthy. And when you alter physiology like that, you're going to get a downstream effect somewhere. And all these people start having, like you mentioned, all these nutrient deficiencies. And a lot of them will end up breaking the band. And then their stomach just goes right back to the way it was. Absolutely. And now you got to ask yourself, is that part of your stomach, it hasn't been used? It's almost like it becomes dormant and all the villi in there that were absorbing food and things like that need to be woken up again because they haven't had anything in there, right? So you're sitting there looking at it going, okay, this can't be good. And your body's got to adjust again. And can it adjust again is the other question. So when you look at all these procedures and all these things people are doing to just stop eating, it's insane to me, like how people really can't control their eating. And when you think about it, everyone talks about, drugs and alcohol and all these addictions. I think the worst addiction to have is a food addiction because you got to eat, right? So you look at all these people and what they're going through and the lengths they'll go to try and lose weight, and not only lose weight because they want to look better, but they got to feel better and they got to be healthy and live a longer life. And
I have to speak to that. There are many downstream effects, but I have to speak to that really quick, John, before we go on. In a way, I have to show compassion to those people that are struggling with that. And I think that this is something evil that goes on in the country. And going back to the FDA, I know we want things FDA approved. Then why do they let us have food that is literally a drug? So many of these foods with the high fructose corn syrups and the seed oils and all this stuff, it's so addictive. I mean, the whole, it sounds funny, but bet you can't eat just one, the Ruffles or Lay's or whatever it is. I mean, for those people that have those food addictions, it's like, it'd be almost like, we look at that huge epidemic of pills that we had in this country with the painkillers and, the whole thing that was going on with the Vikings and all that. I look at it is the exact same way with food, because they have literally weaponized food. And I've seen there was something that I saw the other day that was talking about like, well, I ate it as a kid. It's fine now. The Fruit Loops that you were eating as a kid back in the early 80s were not as full of garbage as the stuff today. A lot of the foods that we think are the same are no longer the same because, and I'm going to call it weaponization. They've been weaponized with these ultra processed high fructose corn sugars and carbohydrates and all this stuff that people eat them, and it does become an addiction, much like the pain pills your doctor gives you after surgery that has led to how many deaths from heroin or fentanyl or whatever it is, just because doctors said to take this to get rid of the pain. Next thing you know, they're hooked. They can't come off it. They do have an addiction to it, like me. John, do I love food? I love food. That's my jam. So for me, it's always a struggle to not overeat. And with the way food is now, if you're not constantly watching what you're doing, kind of like not being able to monitor the pain pills your doctor's giving you, it can spiral out of control and you can become morbidly obese. And then welcome to the world of insulin and every other drug on the market, So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but it's just like I want to show compassion to the people that have the food addictions like I would to the people that got hooked on pills because they were once prescribed by a doctor. So that's how I look at it.
That's why I was saying a food addiction is worse than drugs and alcohol, because you have to eat, And
Right.
so when you look at it, you gotta say to yourself, man, I know what it's like myself, because I did extreme dieting and it really caused an issue later on, because you're super strict for 3 months and then you just go hog wild after that. But I think when I look at it, the three out that are out there, there's basically 2 out there now. The third one, Retreatide, that uses the glucagon, isn't out yet. And what's really interesting about that one is, so when you look at semaglutide, right, you kind of look at that as the diet coach, right? It makes you feel full, slows digestion, it controls your blood sugar, and basically the result is you eat less. The problem with it is you eat less, you don't get enough protein, your body starts to get nutrient deficiencies, and that's why you get Ozempic face, right? So you got to really be careful when you're on the GLP-1. So when they came out with the tirzepatide, that is the GIP one now. That's added to it, which is basically the metabolic mechanic, right? And that helps your body use the food efficiently, which gives you better energy and a better balance. So once they combine those two, that's a really good mix, because you're not going to feel you're going to be getting these deficiencies, because you're going to have more energy. You're going to eat more, but you generally eat healthier. Like I remember you had a little discussion. You and I had a discussion where you you went out one night and you felt like eating, and I think that's the case with that the tirzepatide. You can actually eat, whereas the GLP-1 alone kind of really kills your appetite. So if you're looking at the third one, like the retatrutide, I always say,
hang on. We're going to do this together. Okay.
With Tetratide.
All right. We're going to do it together, John. This is going to, because I had to learn it too.
Never say it right.
I'm going to you're going to do it tonight. You ready? Retatrutide. Try it.
The Retatrutide.
Yes.
So what's great about that, it has all 3 of them in it. It has the GLP-1, the GLP-1 and the GIP, and it also has glucagon in it. And the glucagon is great because glucagon now it basically acts the opposite of insulin. Where insulin stores things, glucagon takes it out, and it takes it from fats, carbs, and proteins. So you have that in there. It's the most powerful combo they're finding for weight loss, actually like 25% more. And the problem is right now, I think Eli Lilly is doing it, and they're at stage 2 of the 3 phases. So it looks like it's going to eventually get approved, but it's supposed to be like incredible for weight loss and not many side effects at all.
I've seen what it does to a couple friends of mine that were extremely heavy, and they lost the weight. Oh, they've taken it. That's why. I mean, hey, I'm going to keep it real. We speak the truth here. I bought some, and I'm going to see what happens. And again, it's for me. The reason I'm taking it is I can eat clean, but I just want to get rid of that noise that just calls me at night going, come to me, or the ribeyes that call me. They call me John. Johnny, they call me, no, I'm not going to go to Korean barbecue. So it's like, and the thing with me is that I know my body, and I know that I'm going to be able to get the protein necessary to not get Ozempic face. But so many people that I've talked to that do this, they're like, yeah, oh, wow, I kind of forgot to eat today. That could be trouble. So the guys that I talked to, I've sent you pictures of one of them, I believe, my buddy that's the Green Beret. I mean, he's jacked. So he makes he's doing it to get lean and shredded. And he's doing it with incredibly high amounts of protein and supplementation, all that stuff. And so did the other guy. So they look fantastic. They look lean and muscular. But you are correct. If you just kind of forget to eat and go down, well, I don't need to eat today, that's when the muscle starts wasting. And then I would see that as a problem when they come back off it. If you've killed a lot of muscle tissue, well, there goes your body's resting metabolism engine. You know, I mean, that's the best part of having a lot of muscle tissue on your body is just sitting down watching TV. You're going to be burning more fat or more calories than someone that's, you know, of equal weight that has a higher body fat percentage.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So you don't want to get rid of your muscle. You want to keep it. So that would be my one. And I think you'd agree with this. For anyone that is considering doing this, make it a point, even if you're not hungry, choke down a protein shake, choke down a lean beef patty or chicken breast or whatever, and don't let that protein get away from you, because that's where mass wasting begins.
Right.
Fair
And
enough.
you know what else is great too with that? The third one is it's really good for fatty liver, and there's a lot of people with fatty liver. So a lot of fatty liver is from excessive, sugar, especially fructose, and that's what people like with fatty liver. The high fructose corn syrup, it gets stored in your liver, and that's why they end up getting that. And then the semaglutide itself, the GLP-1, is great for diabetes, and then obviously the terzipatide is good for all that too, because you're adding that second molecule in there. But I'm really curious to see over time with research what the Retratitrude does.
We're going to work on it. Retatrutide, John. You're going to do it. Retatrutide. Hey, I'm so glad you brought that up. I want to touch on that for 1 second, talking about the fatty liver. That was something that was shocking to me, because I always thought it was only from alcohol. But do you remember that? And sadly, rest in peace, Morgan Spurlock was his name, that did that Super Size Me. So for those of you that don't know it, it's a guy that just did a thing where he was going to eat 3 square meals a day at McDonald's for a month. And anytime they're not allowed to say it anymore, but back then they would say, would you like that supersized? And if they did, part of the deal was he had to say yes. So, that's what he did for a month. And when he went and had his blood work and had his body checked out afterwards, the most shocking thing to me was he had fatty liver. I mean, his liver was just pounded because, he's not doing Diet Cokes. He's doing regular Cokes, milkshakes, Sundays, obviously all the garbage McDonald's food. But it was just unbelievable how fatty his liver was. So I'm glad you brought that up with the retatrutide and the other and those other peptides. That does help to de-escalate fat in the liver. That's wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
because you're getting rid of a lot of those crappy foods. You're not eating as much, and you're trying to get on a healthier diet. So all these other secondary downstream effects, so to speak, are going to help with that. And anytime you get rid of excessive, alcohol is going to be something that'll also cause fatty liver. But when you add in all that, that fructose, that's the recipe for disaster with the fatty liver. So
margaritas are a no-go.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, definitely. You don't want to have wine will give you fatty liver. If you're a big wine drinker, you got to be really careful because you got all that sugar in it. A lot of it's fructose because it's made from grapes. And then you got alcohol. It's like the worst thing for fatty liver. And realize too, when you drink alcohol, so what happens is your body, let's say your kidneys and your liver, they work in unison to help cleanse your blood, right? But when you drink alcohol, your liver sets aside the least important things. And one of them is lipolysis, which is burning fat. So now when you drink alcohol, your body goes, I'm not burning fat anymore. I got to get rid of this alcohol in the bloodstream, and I need to do it fast so it won't burn fat. Now, if you constantly drink every day, you're having all that sugar. If it's wine, you're having sugar in these, cosmopolitans and margaritas and, daiquiris and all these things. You're just setting yourself up for fatty liver. And
John, at the end of the night, after having a bender, I mean, you've never ended up at Taco Bell or anything, have you? So you're saying your body stops burning body fat when you drink?
Yeah.
I mean, at least you never get hungry at the end of the night, right?
I'm
joking. Drinking? I'm being very facetious. Think about it.
Yeah.
Anytime you've ever been to the bars and thrown a buzz on or gotten hammered, whatever it might be, how many times, let's keep it real, have you ever woken up in your life and seen fast food wrappers or something that you shouldn't have been eating? Because it's
protein bar wrapper stuck
for you, right? But I just think about all those late nights, is KFC still open?
Yeah.
And it's just that you're right. So if your body is shutting down lipolysis, and then you go and just I keep it honest here, because I don't do this anymore. But back in the day when I would, and I'd get up and there'd be like, why are there 17 White Castle wrappers in my car this morning? That kind of thing. It was horrible.
Yeah, too, think about it this way, Mike. When you look at people and go, look at his beer belly. Well, why do you think you get a beer belly? You got all those calories. You're not burning fat. Your liver's inflamed, and you get this bloated gut from an inflamed liver, from body fat, and just an inflamed intestinal tract. So that's why you see these guys with a beer belly, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Absolutely.
they're putting all this crap in their body, and everything's inflamed, full of body fat, and you're just a mess. So you just really got to look at alcohol as a demon, and it really is. Why do you think they call alcohol spirits? Go look it up. It's a spirit of alcohol, and it's an evil spirit basically. And so that's why it's really bad to drink alcohol, because it does nothing. There is no good in any alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing alcohol is good for is 100% isopropyl alcohol, and you want to disinfect a wound. That's why in all the old westerns you see them pouring whiskey on a wound, right? It's going to kill these deadly bacteria. What's it doing to your gut microbiome, right?
Smashing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I know, you've competed at very high levels, and anytime I've gotten extremely lean, alcohol's the first thing you got to cut out. And you guys get people that want to talk to you. I mean, you're a trainer, like, John, well, just on the weekends, it's like you set yourself back so far,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, I just know personally, like when I'm not really drinking at all anymore right now. I mean, I'll have an occasional glass of whiskey with some people down here if they want to do that, but it's maybe once a month. And it just, even then, I just want to drink it. It's like, it just doesn't do it for me really anymore, And it's so crazy when back in the day, I remember, going to the bars, drinking with your buddies and all that. And then I remember going to the bars and not drinking and just going there for the social aspect of it, going up and getting, back in the day, get like a Diet Coke with a lemon in it. So people are thinking that I'm drinking a Jack and Coke or a Rum Runner or, or a, what is it? A Cuba Libre, or something like that.
Yeah.
And just being like, what a different experience it was as well, for the better,
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. That's got to be cut out. Well, let's shift gears here real quick here as we kind of come to the end and just do almost like a rapid fire of the most popular peptides that are on the market right now that I know that we're both talking about taking, and we've done some research on. So let's start with the very famous Jim Bro term, Wolverine stack, which is that BPC 157 and TB 500.
I think so all these are going to be fitness and health longevity type peptides, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
this is
important to lay out each one, and then we can talk about what combining them does, because there's a different effect when you combine them versus taking them one by one, which is how I'm going to do my peptides when I start taking them. I'm going to do one at a time, and then I'll do the Wolverine stack to see what they do. But like, for example, I'll just run over real quick what they are. BPC 157 is produced in your stomach gastric area. And it helps protect the body. That's what BPC stands for, body protecting compound. And it aids in healing. It reduces inflammation. It speeds tendon and gut repair. But right now it's experimental, and it's not like approved by the FDA. And everything you're doing, here's the other thing I want to bring up that's important. So during COVID, when people took the vax, and if they had symptoms or a reaction, what was really crappy is they had nothing set up to report your side effects, right? So all these people that were having side effects, probably the first 3 years of COVID, none of them were reported. No deaths, no adverse events like heart attack, liver problems, none of them were reported. And there was a lot of people messed up. So when you look at the statistics for COVID, a lot of times, whatever you see now, you might as well quadruple those effects, because the first 3 to 4 years, nothing was reported to VAERS, which is the vaccine reporting system that the CDC set up. Now, let's look at peptides. Right now, all these people are taking peptides, right? But they're all experimental. No one's reporting what side effects they have. You go to the doctor, they don't sit there with a list and go, yeah, what happened? So this was an opportunity missed by so much research to be found out or examined from people and their side effects. And a lot of them, you got to follow these for a long time. And peptides, like vaccines, you can have up to 10 years and you can have issues, especially with, like we talked earlier, like growth hormone, very powerful substances. So what's really scary is no one's reporting any side effects. So you have all these people taking it, but how do you know if what happened to you was a reaction from the peptide if no one's reporting it, right? So that's where I'm having a problem with peptides too, that everyone's going, oh, so-and-so took it. Yeah, but no one's talking about any side effects they had.
Yeah.
And that's the bad part. So BPC 157, what are some of the side effects, right? You got nausea, you can get headaches, you can get rashes and things like this. But nobody knows right now what the long-term effects are of it, or if it's maybe causing some kind of cancer. Who knows, right? Because no one's reporting it. And it's basically research only. The same thing with that GHK-Cu, which is basically, it's a copper binding peptide, and it's found in blood and saliva, but it's also found in your blood vessels. It's what helps keep your blood vessels healthy. What feeds your skin, your blood vessels, and your capillaries. So that's why this peptide's become really popular. It improves wounds and skin healing. It's mostly cosmetic and regenerative. But again, who knows what it's going to happen in the future with it. It's not approved by the FDA. The only thing it's approved for is a cream. It's not approved for injectable. And what are people doing? They're injecting it in the Wolverine stack. So you got to be really careful with these and how you take them. Then TB500 is the other Wolverine stack. It's a synthetic form of thymosin, it stimulates cell migration and tissue regeneration, and it's faster for tendon repair and muscle recovery. So it kind of works hand in hand with the other two, and it's experimental as well. And it's mostly being used in orthopedic settings. Very few doctors are using it because they don't know anything about them themselves. So right now, there's no studies set up for any of these. And if you pair them all together, you're going to get a whole nother effect. Now you have all these different peptides that you're taking, 3 different ones. You're taking on the side effects of 3 different peptides that you know nothing of.
It's alive.
Yeah.
I mean,
and what that one's being reported of is there's also one called Glow, and that's the same. So the BPC 157 and the TB 500, I believe, is the true Wolverine stack. They added the GHK-Cu and they call it Glow. So, I mean, then you have your GH derived ones, the Samarelin, the Tesamorelin. Those are the only ones really that have been approved for prescription in a lot of the other ones, other than the insulin related ones.
They've been around a lot longer too, haven't they? Because I do remember hearing those a lot longer. 15 years ago at least.
30s. So
okay.
Get a prescription of that. We know the side effects of them because they did all the studies. And one is like it helps recovery with lean mass and people that are deficient in GH, and that's the Samarelin. And then the Tesamorelin, it's really big on decreasing belly fat, especially like in HIV patients. That's where all this started, was with the HIV patients back in the 80s, when it was first discovered, because they had so much wasting from disease. They started pumping them with steroids and growth hormone to get their muscle tissue back.
And they got that gut like you're talking about. They all got that bloat gut, like the Palumboism, as we call it.
Yeah, but realize that was also combined with insulin. The bodybuilders are doing that. So you combine 2 powerful insulin, and what happens with those 2? Everything grows, including your organs. That's why you get that bubble gut. That's or right. the Palumbo gut, as they say. And Palumboism isn't just with the gut. Your muscles in your arms shrink, your legs shrink, get really weird, and you get this big giant gut on them,
Yeah.
And it's I feel bad for Dave Palumbo. He's actually was a really good bodybuilder, and he has a really great podcast, but he's got that moniker now for Palumboism. And there's a lot of bodybuilders that have it. And it's really sad that people are willing to just shoot anything in them just for a temporary situation, or, something that I understand. If you're super obese and you got to get healthy, no matter what, you're going to lose all that weight. You're going to be healthier than the possible side effects of, some of these peptides if you do them relatively safe. But some of these people really don't need any of them. They're just lazy and they're just shooting crap in their body. And I sure hope they don't regret it one day.
Do you know anything at all? I don't mean to throw a left hook at you, John, but do you know anything at all about that melanin boosting peptides, the one for tanning? Because I have heard of that as well. Do you know anything?
Yeah, I've heard of that one too. Don't know much about it. I do know that there's more people. In fact, I was just reading about it. More people are reporting side effects with that one because it affects the skin. So you're going to see skin side effects more. So for example, I heard this is what I heard. Like if you got a mole or any kind of like weird skin growths, it could make them even bigger. Even though it's going to change the color of your skin, you're also going to change everything on your skin. If you look at a lot of your moles, and like as you get older, you're going to get something called sebaceous hyperplasia. So you're basically your oil glands and where you secrete oil out of, they kind of like close up and you get this like skin bump. So if you take that melatonin type or melanin peptide and it starts to change your skin, it could change those and make them even darker. So now you not only have a bump that you would match the color of your skin before, now it doesn't. And you got this bigger bump that's darker and sticks out even more. And same thing with age spots, all that stuff could be magnified if you're not doing that particular peptide right. So that's one I would be really careful with. And same thing with the GHK CU, who knows what's going to happen with that. But what's interesting, I had my I had the varicose veins on my legs done, like the little capillaries and stuff like that.
Yep.
And the reason I'm not taking my peptides right away is because a lot of these peptides, they increase what's called angiogenesis. And that's creating more blood cells in your body and repairing blood cells. And that's what a big thing with copper, right? So when you take the GHKCU, it's going to disperse copper more in your bloodstream and into your body. And what happens is it's going to help heal those spider veins that I got taken away. So they can come back much easier if you do that. So for 6 weeks before and 6 weeks after, I can't do any of the peptides because it'll help regenerate those capillaries. And I obviously don't want that, but that's how they work so well. They go into a wound and they create angiogenesis to help heal the wound. So they're creating newer, more healthier blood cells and capillaries to feed the cartilage or to feed the tendon or to feed the muscle. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's called angiogenesis, and TB500, GHKCU, and BPC are big on that. So that's something that you really got to consider if you're going to be taking those. Is the other thing too is any procedure you're going to get and you're going to take a peptide, see how it's going to affect it.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. When you brought that up, I remember this is like 20 years ago. I remember reading a study. I think we talked about this before with that veterinarian that I was reading a lot about. He was talking about the human body is genetically capable of sustaining life up to 140 years. And one of the reasons that we perish is because of, malnutrition and, improper vitamins. And anyway, what it was talking about, one of the studies they did is they took 100 chickens and they gave 50 of them copper supplements and made the other 50 completely devoid of any copper whatsoever. The 50 that got copper were fine. The ones that got zero copper, every single one of them died of an aneurysm. And that's why when this GKU CU came out, when it was talking about copper, I was like, I remember and then it made so much sense with the elasticity of the skin and all this, because I was like, that's what it does for our arteries.
Yeah.
So
and too, is you don't need much of it, and you have to balance it with zinc. So it's really important to look at your zinc intake along with your copper. Zinc is one of those supplements you got to be really careful with too, because it can be toxic, and it also, it'll really make you nauseous. If you take I have these little 7 milligram zinc lozenges, and if I take that on an empty stomach, being close to 200 pounds, I get a little nauseous. I gave one to my client one morning. He's a kid. He's like 17 years old. He's real skinny. He's about 150 pounds. Man, he barfed all over instantly within 5 minutes after taking it. So you got to be really careful with zinc too. And zinc and copper, they work together, in unison. So you really have to take one. If you're taking one, take the other. And you don't need much copper. You only need 1 microgram, I think it is, or 1 milligram. Is all you really need. And I take it daily, and I try to take all my supplements come from pure encapsulations, or I get it from Emerald Nutrition. And both of those products have very, very little fillers in the pills. So like, for example, I can't take magnesium stearate. It actually, I can feel my joints getting stiff.
Really?
And, a lot of supplements have magnesium stearate in it.
That's the filler they use.
Yeah. And so all Emerald Nutrition and then pure encapsulations, they only have hemicellulose in it, which is basically a fiber, right?
Yep.
So it's really important to see what you're taking in conjunction with your vitamins as the transport molecule.
Where do you see this going, John? Last thing I want to ask you is this whole, and we decided that we were going to talk about peptides today because it is the trend that's going on in the fitness industry right now. Do you see this being a long-term thing that people are going to use? Is this a flash in the pan? I mean, what do you see happening with this whole push for Everybody. I mean, it's crazy. People that I go to church with, random people you'd never think come up and they're asking me like, what do you know about this peptide or that peptide? And it's right now, it's let's keep it real. It's the rage. Where's it going to go?
I think it's just going to get better. It's going to get more efficient.
Let me ask you this one last thing. Are there any peptides you think that would work to prevent something like a COVID? Are we there yet with that? Or is that something that's probably down the
They
road?
haven't. Well, they originally came out with the original peptides were immune regulators and insulin regulators and GH regulators. Those are the main three systems that were invoked when they came up with a lot of the peptides. So yeah, they got them. It's just that and I remember reading about a few of them, but since we were just doing the fitness ones, I really didn't look into them too much. Obviously, I don't have any immune problems. I know I have autoimmune issues, but I don't know what a lot of these immune peptides. I think they're mostly for like people with AIDS and things like that that need a stimulation to their thymus gland or whatever it was, because I think that's what a lot of them acted on, like and I think it was kids, like, your thymus gland is where your immune system is when you're born and up to like age 12. And then it kind of loses a lot of its inner workings. And then your gut becomes the main, producer of your immune system, all your microbiome and things like that.
Yep.
And I mean, that's a whole nother interesting topic to touch on, is the immune system.
Oh, absolutely.
Crazy stuff there.
We definitely should do a deep dive into that. My biggest thing is when anybody starts getting sick, I'm like, kombucha, probiotics right away. It's first things first, get that immune system revving. Well, anyway, I'd like to thank our sponsors, us. John, why don't you tell them a little bit about what you got going down there in San Diego?
Yeah, so if you're interested in getting workout programs and things like that, you can go to my website, thefearlessfitness.com, and click on the products tab, and there's a whole bunch of workouts on there that you can buy, equipped with videos and very detailed instructions on the programs. And all the programs are 8-week programs, and they're really good. And you could buy equipment on there as well. That's thefearlessfitness.com. And if you want to work out in San Diego, you can go to my other website, which is personaltrainersandiego.com.
We've got Iron Mike's Kitchen Brewing. In the meantime, you can go to TikTok. Check out Iron Mike's Kitchen. I've also got an Instagram and a Facebook page, but I'm pretty much doing everything through TikTok at the time being. So thanks again for everybody for listening. And Johnny boy, you want to take it away?
Yeah. Thanks for stopping in and watching, everybody, and listening. And remember to stay free, stay fit, and stay faithful. F3 Podcast.